Hey everyone, it's Alicia with Charming Little Trinkets. I'm gonna do a tutorial video to make this cheeseburger here. It won the contest on what to do the tutorial video on. You'll have to forgive me, I'm fighting some allergies or something here, so my voice is a little raspy and I will be clearing my throat a lot. Okay, so I've been doing things with clay since I was about 12 years old. This is the first thing I ever made. It's a little witch with a crystal ball, and she always sits there. I don't think that's bad for a 12-year-old. And then I gave it up for a while, and then I went back to it as an adult and decided this is what I wanted to do, so this is what I do. Okay, so we're going to get started. I have all my materials here and my tools, and I'm going to tell you what each one of them are for. The first and most important thing to do is to clean things. You clean your hands. You have a clean surface. I use wax paper. I just tape it to a clipboard so I have a clean, smooth surface with each piece that I do. Washing your hands is super important. I mean, you have to have very clean hands. Because clay will pick up every bit of dirt you can think of. If there is the smallest amount of dirt on your hands, clay will pick it up. So clean under your fingernails really well, clean your hands really well. I keep a package of baby wipes at my desk so I can, excuse me, so I can also wipe my hands in between using colors. Because if I use the color red, and then I go pick up a transparent or a white, it is going to transfer that color onto the lighter color. So I constantly have a baby wipe or a wet rag sitting at my desk. So I'm going to go through these real quick and tell you what these are used for. So I have my X-Acto knife, and it's sharp, and it is clean, and it will cut my pieces where I need to cut. I have an old paring knife that I use sometimes. Just an old knife. But I like the X-Acto knife because it's small, and I also use it to roll pieces out. I use it as kind of like a mini rolling pin because it's heavy. And then I have my sculpting tool. This is made by Sculpey. It's got that on one end, and it's flat on the other. And they come in packs of 3. It's got ones that are bigger. I'll show you these real quick. I'm not using them for the project. It's got a bigger ball on one end to help sculpt clay, and then it's got this pointy silicone end here. And then there's one that is smaller with a smaller pointy end right there. And I use these 3 tools a lot. I also have this small, it's actually a crochet needle with the tip broken off. You can get a small pointed tool in the clay section at your craft store, or you can use whatever. I tend to find things around the house and use those as tools. You'll start looking at things differently, like different textures that you could use with clay. This is a wire brush. I use this a lot to make different textures, and I use this thimble to make different textures, which I will show you here in a little while. I have a pin that I will bend and use in the top of the cheeseburger. And I have my wire cutters and stuff to do that. And then I have, this is called Sculpey Bacon Bond. This is when I'm layering the clay, I use it in between the layers, because if not, since those aren't really blended together, the things on the cheeseburger, this will just pop apart after you bake it if you don't use some type of a bacon bond. Also, I use the bacon bond on the pin before it is put into the cheeseburger. That way it stays. And also I use bacon bond on the tiny sesame seeds on top. And then I have a paintbrush and some eyeshadow, which I will show you later what I'm going to do with that. And I also have some oil. You can use any mineral oil, baby oil, things like that. I use that afterwards with the paintbrush to get my fingerprints off of the piece, so that people aren't getting a piece with my fingerprints sticking right out at them. I have my clay all ready to go. This is the color for the burger. This is for the bun, lettuce, tomato. This is transparent for onions and sesame seeds. And this is a little bit of yellow mixed with a little bit of orange, because I don't sell a color that is particularly cheese. So I kind of had to make it. So I'm going to go ahead and make this and show you how I do my work. Okay, the first thing I'm going to make is the bun. With polymer clay, basically it is tiny, tiny, tiny bits of polymer that is basically in a clay. You want to work the polymer. So like, let's say you're going to make something that is square. If you just cut it off of the chunk of clay and bake it, it will break. So you need to work the polymer to kind of activate it. So I will sit here and knead a piece for a couple minutes. I've already done these, but I just wanted to show you so you know that you need to actually work with the clay and knead it to get it. Okay, so to make the bun, I'm basically going to make a ball with a little flat bottom, and then I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to cut what the top of the bun is, and then I'm going to cut what the bottom of the bun is, and then it'll leave a little piece. You can set that to the side for something else. And then I will shape the bottom of my bun how I want it to be, a round shape. It doesn't have to be perfect right now because I'm going to texture it anyway. Set that to the side, and then the top bun I will kind of shape, and I want to keep it rounded along the edges so it looks like a bun. So I got the top of my bun there. I've got the bottom of my bun here, and this is where I want to texture it with this wire brush so it looks like bread. And I'll just kind of hold it down and stab at it a little bit so it gets those super tiny holes. You can also, a lot of people use a toothbrush for this. I just have always had this wire brush on hand, so I've never had to really use a toothbrush, but a toothbrush does work well to make texture of cakes and bread and things like that. So I've got the bottom of my bun there, and it looks like actual bread because it's textured. I'm going to go ahead and texture the top. And you can really just do around the edges because nobody's going to see the middle. I end up doing the whole thing because, you know, I'm just picky and weird. Okay, so I got the top of my bun there, and I got the bottom. And I'm going to set those there, and now it's time to make the burger. So basically I have a piece of dark brown, and I just flatten it out. Don't mind my hands, they're quite swollen. I've been not eating very healthy the past few days. Shame on me. So I've got the burger flattened into a disc, and I'm going to take my thimble, because it has all those dots there, and I'm going to texture the burger to look like a burger with my thimble. You can basically use anything that has this kind of a texture, or you can use the end of a pencil and just kind of jab it around. Like I said, I find things around the house that I can use to make texture. I have a bunch of little things. I just steal things from my kitchen all the time, and there we go. I don't know if that'll focus. There's my burger. And I'm going to set that down. And then we're going to go with some lettuce. Now, with the lettuce, I just take a little piece of this green. And this is where this guy comes in. I hold it on my finger, and I will roll it out so that it thins out the edges of this clay, and it will make it leaf-like lettuce. And then I just kind of tap the edges, give it a little bit of definition, like pieces of lettuce. And I will set those to the side and use them when we build the burger. Don't mind if you hear little kids screaming in the background. I have quite a few little ones here. I've got my 3-year-old, and I have a 6-month-old, and then my daughter babysits a 2-year-old. So we got quite the full house here today. And that's my husband retrieving my son from my bedroom. Okay, so I think I have enough lettuce there. Okay, now, tomatoes are a little trickier. On the burger, they really only see the edge of the tomato, so you don't have to cut and define the inner part of the tomato, like the seeds and everything. That's really not necessary. So, I just take my red and I roll it into a small cylinder. And I take my X-Acto knife, cut off the end and set that aside. And then I will cut discs of a few tomatoes. Now when you cut it down like that, it's going to flatten the edge of it and not make it round. So you just got to kind of shape it back. It's really not a big deal. Some harder clays will stay shaped. This is where I take this thing and I go around the edge to make it flat again, so it looks like the edge of a tomato. Like I said, some harder clays, this shape will stay, but most clays are really soft after you've worked with them for a little while, so they won't stay. And plus, with the tomatoes, they're not going to see the whole tomato because a lot of it's going to be in the middle of the burger anyway. So you just got to make sure that you have what looks like the edge of a tomato to put around your burger. Okay, so I got my tomatoes sitting there. Sometimes I take the end of my X-Acto knife and make them a little more flat because it's a really good tool to do that with. Okay, the cheese is obviously going to be the easiest. You just take your piece and you kind of make it a flat square, like a piece of cheese. And then the onions, this is a transparent piece of clay, so it looks kind of white. And what will happen is when it bakes, it goes kind of a clear, not really clear, but kind of transparent like that. And then if you put a glaze on it, which I haven't done on this one yet, it'll look more clear. So like cooked onions. And it also works well as sesame seeds because sesame seeds are kind of transparent. So I really like using it for onions, cheese on pizza, things like that. I use it in the teeth for my vampire teeth, but I also mix it with glow-in-the-dark clay so they glow in the dark. And I also mix it with the pink on the gums so the gums don't seem so solid. They kind of have a little bit of depth to them. Transparent clay is a medium, and it's really good to work with skin tones and things like that to give it a little bit of depth. So for the onions, I basically roll out a very thin piece of clay here, and I cut a piece. And when I cut it, I form it into a small circle. So it looks like a sliced onion. It's a little tricky to do, but that's one way of doing it. Or I can show you another way that's a lot easier. You take some of the clay. Let me get my bearings here. When they're tiny pieces like this, it gets away from me easily. And this is the easier way of doing it. You take some of the clay and you form a small disc. Then you take the end of an object, like this pointy tool, and you push it in there to make a hole. And then I put it on the top, and then I turn it over, and I'll stick it in there again, basically to make a hole to make a small ring. This is the easier way. It's the way I use mostly. You can do the other way if you want, but it's more difficult, and I don't have time for that. I have small children. So I will shape a few pieces of onion here, and then we will build our burger. My kids downstairs listening to Veggie Tales, and I get these songs stuck in my head all the time. It is one of those things that I'll be up here working on clay, singing songs about Larry and his hairbrush. Okay, so I've got my onions, and that one broke, but it doesn't matter. I can put that on the inside of the burger. Now we're going to build our burger with the Bacon Bond. The label's gone off of it. Sculpey makes it. The label will look like this, but it'll say Bacon Bond instead of translucent liquid Sculpey. So basically I take, can you see that there? Okay. I do a little dab of the Bacon Bond on the bottom of the bun. And then I put the burger. And then it's like building an actual cheeseburger, which is really fun. And then I take my cheese, and I get the cheese on there, and I kind of push it down over the edges so it looks like it is melting. Okay, and then I will do the lettuce. And I basically stick it on there and kind of ruffle it a little. Use this tool, kind of push the edges in, things like that, to make it to where it's Looking like some real lettuce there. I'm going to make another piece here real quick and put it on the other side. I like it to be uniform all the way around. Some people just care what the front of their project looks like. I don't. I like what the entire thing looks like. So that's that. The lettuce, I do not use the bacon bond. The cheese, I do not use the bacon bond because I'm pushing on these, so they will stay. Okay, now tomatoes, you want to go 1, 2, 3 on the edges here. Oops. So I got 1 tomato there. Sorry, I keep putting my hand in the way. This is the first video I've ever done. Okay, so I got the tomatoes there. And then the onions, I'm going to put opposite of the tomatoes in their little spots. Onion, onion. My son tends to think that these are his toys, so he's constantly stealing my little cheeseburgers and things like that to play with, which it's fine as long as he doesn't break them. Sometimes I make him his own little things because he really likes Shopkins and stuff like that, so I'll make him his own little stuff. And then we've got the top of the bun. Okay, now what I told you I was going to do with the eyeshadow, I have this palette of eyeshadow I got after Christmas one year for $2 on clearance. And I use it to shade things. So this bun's looking kind of plain. So I will take some brown eyeshadow on the end of a paintbrush, and I will put it on the top of the bun here to make it kind of look like it's toasted. And then I'll use some like golden colors around the edge on that so it looks like it's toasted. And then I take the transparent clay here, and I will make little tiny, get it on my right finger there, little tiny seeds. If that will focus. I don't know if it will or not because it's really tiny. Let me get that to... There you go. You see that little tiny seed? And I will put a little dab of bacon bond on there and the seed. And I do a few of those. Dab the bacon bond. Dab, dab, dab. So I have some seeds on there. It's okay if some bacon bond gets on the outside. It doesn't matter. It will, when you bake it, it'll kind of just flake off there. Not really flake off, but disappear. It bakes clear. Sorry, my hand keeps getting in the way. It's just easier for me to stick it on there. I should have done this the other way because I'm right-handed. But that's okay. The reason I use the bacon bond is because if you don't with these seeds, they will flake off. They will take a dive. So I've got my sesame seeds on there. And now I'm going to take this pin. Can you see that? And I'm going to bend the end of it to make a loop. And then I'm going to make the pin wavy. The reason you do that is so it sticks and stays in your piece. When I first started doing this, I made the mistake of not doing that, and my pins were constantly falling out. So I do that, and then I stick it in here to get some bacon bond on it before I stick it in the top of the cheeseburger. And then I will bake this on a small pan in the oven at 255 degrees for about half hour. And when it comes out, it will look like this cheeseburger right here, which is pretty cool. At least my 3-year-old thinks so. And you can make it into a pendant. You can have it on a bracelet. You can do whatever you want. You can make them any size you want. This one's a little bigger than the one I just made, but in the end, it's all the same, and you've got yourself a tiny cheeseburger there. So thank you for watching, and there will be another video coming up soon of a rainbow cake. Have a great day.